everyone, and welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 399. Caught you off guard.
Almost at 400.
Oh, boy.
You made it like spooky.
I don't. I was going to press the sound effect button, but I don't remember which one is the spooky sound. We are almost at 400.
Crazy.
Dang. I think that just clicked for me. Exciting show tonight. We have a wonderful guest. She is a GR crew member, but also just a badass ultra runner and adventurer. DEB HAMBERLIN is going to be joining us on the show tonight to chat all about the Cocodona 250, the 250-mile race through the Arizona desert that took place a couple of weekends ago. I say weekends, I actually mean a couple of weeks ago, the entire week.
Yes.
It's not just a couple of days out on the trail. It's like a week. And so our guest, DEB HAMBERLIN, crushed it, finished it. Can't wait to hear all about how this adventure played out for her. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty on logistics. How do you plan for something of this length? Her history in ultra running, and she's done a ton of really amazing stuff. So it'll be a super fun show. Sit back, relax, everyone. Ginger Runner Live begins now. Ginger Runner. What is up, everyone? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 399.
Getting up there.
Pretty
That was
much.
my drum roll.
That was wonderful. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for spending some time with us tonight. We know we appreciate you taking some time away from your busy schedules. It is Tuesday afternoon, evening. It's a beautiful evening here in the Pacific Northwest. We have a super fun show lined up for you tonight. Our wonderful guest, DEB HAMBERLIN, is going to be chatting with us all about the Cocodona 250-mile endurance event that took place a couple of weeks ago in the Arizona desert. So we're going to be asking her all sorts of questions of like what training is like for something of this caliber, the logistics that go into behind the scenes, the crew. How do you crew for a 6-day ultra marathon? How do you switch crew? Like all that stuff. There's so much that goes into these events. So we can't wait to pick Deb's brain to find out how it all went down. Of course, before we introduce our wonderful guest, there's Kim. Hi.
Sticking to tradition of just mixing it up every week.
Every week, it's something a little bit different. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well.
Good.
Hi, everyone. Kim Tashima Newberry here, as always. If you're new, say hi in the chat. If you're old, say hi in the chat also. And just a reminder, we will be bringing Deb on in just a quick second here. And if you have questions for Deb, you can ask them in the chat. There's already questions rolling in, so keep them coming.
Some great questions, yeah. So as the show goes on, feel free to ask those questions. We'll ask them live.
And if you asked before we went live, I may have missed it, so you can pop it in the chat again.
Yeah, just repeat it. We'll see it as we go through here. In addition to our wonderful guest, Kim and myself, we have some individuals that we'd like to thank at the beginning of every Ginger Runner Live episode, and that is our GR crew. It is because of them that we are able to do these live streams every Tuesday, as well as our daily live streams. We do a daily live show called Daily Brew. Our reviews, our films, everything that goes up on this channel is because of them, and they're a huge part of what makes this community what it is. If you would like to join the GR crew, head on over to patreon.com/thegingerrunner. All tiers get access to some really fun perks behind the scenes, including after shows. We're doing an after show tonight with Deb, and we'll ask all the questions that didn't get asked during the main show. So you get access to the after show tonight, previous after shows, our daily live stream. Go check it out. Patreon.com/thegingerrunner.
And just before you dive into your next thing, Aaron Flanders in the chat says, new Patreon subscriber here. Love you guys. Welcome, Aaron. We are happy to have you.
Love having you. Really, really appreciate the support, and welcome to the live show. One individual in particular at the top tier we like to mention at the top of every episode, and that is Brian Sands. Brian Sands, huge supporter of not only us, but all things ultra. His name is probably pretty well known amongst the ultra community because of, one, he's super inspiring, and he gets some amazing races and trains for these really big events, and just is an amazing human being. But he supports so many creators in the space, and we are so fortunate that we are some of the creators that he supports. So huge shout out to Brian. We really appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much. Also, new for the next couple of weeks, we have a wonderful sponsor that's sponsoring our Ginger Runner Live episodes, and that is onX Backcountry. They are an app-based map system. So if you're looking for a map app that you can use to track your runs or to plan out really cool routes or backcountry adventures, onX by far has some of the best mapping systems out there. I've been using them since last October. We used them to plan Tiger Claw as well, the Tiger Claw maps and everything like that created through the onX app. Super easy stuff to use. There's a link in the description. I believe it's the second link there. We'll get you 20% off if you sign up now. Just use our link and you get 20% off. That's kind of the perk, and we love them. They're fantastic, and we're doing some fun stuff with them also in the coming months. I'm excited to chat about, but we can't chat about it yet. It's still a little bit under wraps, but if you are a GR crew member, you'll hear first thing tomorrow. So that's a lot of fun. So shout out to On X Backcountry. We appreciate them very much for supporting our content. Without further ado, I would like to welcome to the show, I believe for the first time on Ginger Runner Live, the one, the only, Deb Hamberlin.
Yay!
Yay!
Hi, Deb. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on your show.
It's long overdue. I mean, you've been a GR crew member for years. You've also been an inspiration to Kim and I for as long. You are a seasoned ultra runner. You've done so many different distances and everything. How is the body feeling post 250 miles?
You know, today I got my first pedicure. I was able to at least have someone touch my feet. It's taken about 2.5 weeks before the blisters have kind of healed up enough to like even attempt. There was a couple surprise black toes, but other than that, not too bad.
Is that something that you're actively thinking about during a 250-mile race? Is like, oh man, the pedicure people are gonna like freak out when they see my feet.
I think they usually freak out when they see my feet, but yeah, my feet modeling days are way behind me.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to highlight a comment here in the chat from Randy. Randy says, I love that we were meeting crew members and hearing about their accomplishments on the show. And another one of the other folks in the chat room was also saying, oh, so that's what Deb looks like. So that's another part of the community here. It's super cool.
Yeah.
We get to know each other by our screen names or usernames. And then when we get to see each other either like on a live show like this or in person, it's kind of like, oh, that's what they look like. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to encounter that at Tiger Claw just a couple of weekends ago. Got to see people who we've never seen in person before, but you know, they approach you and are like, "Oh, here's my screen name." And it's like, "Oh, you are a real person." So I want to kind of dig in here, Deb, because obviously 250 miles, we have a lot to cover tonight, and I want to make sure that we can just kick the ball rolling here. How did you get into ultra running? Because you know, we talk about 50Ks often on the show and sort of that ultra distance, but that's dipping your toes in when you start talking about distances of like 250 miles. So I'm curious how your journey got you to ultra, but then got you through ultra to 250, because that's just it's a completely different beast. So take us back.
Well, I mean, when I started running, you know, pretty much just right out of high school for just exercise, I'd do the 3 to 5 miles a day. And that was kind of my, you know, exercise of choice, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. But after I had my daughter, I was reading about this marathon program where you basically just kind of added on a long run on Saturday, and they did a 3-month, like from couch to marathon program. So I did that. I was 30 at the time, so just the end of 1999. And I did my first 5K, my first 10K, my first half marathon in that training program. And immediately I was hooked. I mean, just, I loved it. I loved the lifestyle. I loved doing it. I loved the ability, because I, you know, ended up doing the Las Vegas marathon. So it was like a destination, which was fun.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I immediately signed up for the next one. And so I started doing marathon after marathon, traveling around, finding different destinations. About, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years later, I saw an ad. We had Arizona Road Racers was a big club here locally. And someone had put out for this 200-mile relay race. They had an all-women's team. They just had someone drop out. They needed someone to fill the space. And so I'm like, I think I could do that. You know, all you have to do is, I mean, 200 miles, but all you have to do is 3 10Ks.
Yeah, I was gonna say a couple legs, right?
Yeah, it's, you know, I don't know anybody, but you know, they're all runners. It's a great way to meet people. So I hooked up with these group of ladies, and they were ultra runners, which I didn't know. Yeah. So they kind of teased me by taking me out to the Grand Canyon for my first double crossing in 2 days. So I was familiar with that marathon distance, which was about one way across, but then you spend the night and then you come back. And after a year or two, they said, you're almost doing an ultra anyway. I mean, you should come and do this 50 miler with us, right? And so I thought about it. So I think in 2005, I ended up signing up for American River 50.
Yeah.
It's been my fastest 50 miler ever since because no one ever told me you could hike. I thought you had to run these whole things. So, yeah, so I wasn't sure about the whole ultra thing after that. I mean, it
Yeah.
hurt. I mean,
Yeah.
50, it hurt, especially running the whole way up and down. And, at that time, you could get into Western states. If you did that 50
Right.
miler, the lottery system wasn't set up yet. It wasn't like, and I was like, no way, not going to do it. I didn't know 5 years later I'd want to do it. And it would take me another 5 years of qualifying every single year that I could get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, that was just like my journey, and then after the pain goes away, you start looking and, the internet sucks you in and, the pictures and again, the travel, because now you're, road marathons got to the point where I think I've done, I don't know, probably 65 road marathons.
Right.
And there's not a lot of variety. I mean, yeah, you go to another town, but it's a road. But ultras is like every single race is different. Every single weather condition is different. I mean,
Right.
anytime you go, you don't know what your race is going to be like. And I just loved that unknown factor, and getting out on the trails. So that's kind of how I got started.
You bring up sort of a common thread that I feel like we find in a lot of these discussions. You've obviously been in the ultra world for a number of years. 2005 was your first. The idea that you can run a lot of different road marathons, and the thing that changes is maybe just the city that you're in, right? The groups of people are huge. The fandom along the sidelines is absolutely electric. But there's something about ultras or even just trail races in general that take you to these really remote areas that feel difficult to reach outside of a trail endurance event or something like that. And it's sort of a snowball. Like once you sort of discover this world and discover what you're capable of, it just sort of snowballs from there. I love that your first ultra was American River 50 miler. So it's not like it's a couple hours out on the trail. Like, wow, that was hard.
Yeah,
It's
but
like
also
a
that
full
you
day.
like just ran it all.
Yeah. Power
Well,
hiking
to be
optional.
fair,
Did
well,
you
no,
win
yeah.
in 2005?
Well, to be fair, I did sign up for a 50K here locally twice, but because, I'm only a warm weather, fair weather kind of person, when I got to the starting line and it was raining, I just got back in my car and I drove home. So, so that 50K just never happened.
You just don't count it.
Yeah.
I did just look up your result, and Deb was 25th. 25th
Yeah.
woman at American River 50 in 9 hours and 9 minutes. I mean,
That's so
Deb,
fast.
that's amazing.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Amazing.
It's also interesting to hear you talk about Western states at that time because if people weren't in the sport at that time, they may not know that there was a time that you could just sign up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had to do any race that was 50 miles or longer. It didn't have to be on any list. I heard that they talked about people kind of even made up races to cover the distance to say,
Oh,
here's my
interesting.
results. It just had to be published. Yeah, I mean, things have changed quite a bit.
I mean, yeah, like the lottery
Yeah.
system now, obviously very
Mhm.
difficult. I do want to know more about what drew you to these longer distances. So as we look through your ultra sign up and your resume and your running history and stuff like that, obviously you've dove in deeper and deeper into the longer distances, the more endurance based events, leading us ultimately to a 250-mile endurance event at Cocodona, which is just a whole nother beast. So what do you think it is that we know that you got into ultra, this wonderful group of ladies that you ran with, getting across the canyon, all these beautiful places that you get to run in, but what took you further and further into the sport?
Once I got comfortable with a certain distance, then I started thinking, what more could I do? I mean, I did several 50 milers, and each one's more difficult or easier. But when I got to like the same one by the third time, and I'm like, I could have kept running. So I wonder what it would have been like if I did.
Mm.
And so that's what kind of drew me to, okay, let's do some 100Ks. And when those went well, and actually, I mean, I look back, really, it was kind of in the Great Recession. I had my own business and I'm in real estate. And at that time, I had a real estate, kind of a real niche off balance sheet type of arbitrage lending business. And, the real estate market crashed.
Yeah.
Took a couple years, and basically my business, had to liquidate. And so everybody's like, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I was like, "Well, maybe I'll train for 100 miler. I've got all this time on my hands."
I love it.
And so that was what kind of prompted me to like, it's time to go big. I have the time. Let's go try it. Yeah.
It's kind of funny how there is this draw to sort of test what you can do. Like, especially you mentioned the 100K distance, that tends to be a real deciding line, I think, for people. 50 miles is very difficult. I mean, any ultra, let's be honest, is a difficult undertaking. 50 miles is sort of that you're committed. You're committed to the ultra distance. You're really testing what your body can do, what your mind is capable of. And that 100K is sort of the dipping of the toes into the 100-mile maybe distance. There seems to be this kind of progression that ultra runners find themselves in. I'm curious with that 100-mile dip, did that show you what you were fully capable of? Or do you think you entered into the 100-mile distance knowing what you were capable of? Like, was the 100-mile, I mean, did it stress you out at all?
No, I mean, the first one, complete disaster. So I only made it to the 100K, to let you know.
There we go.
It was one of those things where I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't do the research. I just went from my 50-mile training and just jumped in. And so, yeah, I mean, I didn't have a coach. I didn't have any race plan, any training plan. I got there, and, it was one of these where the medical were like taping up people's feet. And I was like, "Well, should I
Right.
get my feet taped up?" And they're like, "Well, do you want your feet taped up?" And somehow I forgot that I'm allergic to adhesive, right? So I get my feet taped up, thinking, well, I'm going to do all these miles, I'll protect it. And then the second thing is, some guy's like, "Yeah, I'm going to take an Advil every loop." And I was like, "Oh, well, should I take an Advil every loop? Maybe, because it was Javelina 100. So at that
Yeah.
time, it was 7 loops. So I didn't have any Advil. So I took a leave, which was like 3 times the strength or something. I mean,
my
it's
God, Deb.
ridiculous. By the time I got to the 3rd loop, I mean, my GI distress was like, I couldn't, I mean, and
Bad.
then I took, yeah. And so the 100K at that time too, the 100K, they would give you a 100K buckle
Oh, wow.
if you dropped to the 100K. So I was like, no brainer. I'm done.
I'm good.
Yeah. And then I lost all the skin on my feet.
Oh, Deb.
Everything. It was completely raw. So that's when I okay, got the challenge. I'm going to come back and do this, but I'm going to learn how to do it right.
I love that it didn't deter you. I love that that's also, we obviously, we know you, Deb. We know you now. We've known you for years. I know you to be very tough. Like, there is no quit in Deb. And so just to hear you say that, I'm like, any normal person would be like, I might take a break from this distance because my feet fell off and I was, GI distressed for hours and hours and hours. But Deb is like, I'm just going to figure it out. I'm going to go back and do it again.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you figured it out the next time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, I mean, you look back and you go, I knew better. Like, what was I thinking?
Sure. Yeah.
And people were talking about these Ingenji socks, and I'm like, what's that? I mean, I was trying to soak up everything I'd see someone else do.
Right.
And then at that time, Montrails were it. Oh, well, I got to get Montrail shoes then. I must have had the wrong shoes, and then, I just started doing, looking at more training plans, and got a little more, realized I should be doing more back to back long runs, get the distance in, be on the actual trail I'm going to run on,
right,
and stuff. So I came back the next year and I was able to finish the 100-mile.
I also love the fact that I kind of realized that we very much in this sport look to others who are more experienced for like, how can I approach a 100-mile distance? I'm going to look at people who run 100 miles regularly and see what they do, or see what shoes they're wearing or what gear they're using, and learn from that. Because it really is, ultra is really trial by fire. Like, you have to test everything yourself, and you have to figure it out kind of for yourself. Like, someone can tell you this food is the best food, this is what's going to get you through 100 miles. But until you figure it out for yourself, it might not work out.
Right.
So I love hearing that is what you did, right? Like, you used these ultras to figure out what worked for Deb, and you'd come back and absolutely crush it. I want to start talking about Cocodona, because this is obviously a huge undertaking. It's more than double, just talking about Javelina, more than double the distance.
Yeah.
How did you even prepare for this? Because I imagine it's multifaceted, both physical and mental preparation. How did you go about even taking that onto your calendar? Like, was there an approach for you?
Well, I mean, I feel like I'm kind of been training for about 3 years, because the last 2 years I've been trying to get into Tahoe 200. And
Sure.
so, I mean, I've gone through all the way to the training, and then with the fires that they've had 2 years in a row, with COVID as well, and they've had to cancel those races. So I had actual bins packed for Tahoe that I just took to Cocodona.
Perfect.
I never even unpacked some of that stuff, but yeah, it was, but I look back, everything I tried to consume as much information as I could. Since Cocodona had the race last year, I went to the race. I didn't know if I was going to sign up for it yet, but I wanted to see what people look like after 200 miles. And so I volunteered at the 220-mile aid station. And so I was there for 24 hours. And so I got to see like most all the runners, what they look like. And I found out, like, if you get to 220 miles, you're going to finish.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't matter if they look good or look bad. It didn't matter. Like, they were going to finish. So I'm like, okay. But yeah, I just tried to consume as much information I could, and just started building like these plans of like, okay, a lot of things are going to go wrong over 250 miles. So I needed all of these plans of, when these things go wrong, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle it? And it could be little from like my poles break. So I had backup poles. My stomach turns. That's my number one. Eating is like, during ultras has always been my nemesis. I can eat to the 40-mile mark, and it doesn't matter what the race is at 40 miles. I start to heave, and I can't take in any more calories. So how do I get through that? I've tried. And so training was trying every single food possible, while I was doing that. And having all those foods available to me during that race of what I may not be able to consume. So I'm kind of, I'm a finance background. I'm a spreadsheet junkie. I have a spreadsheet for everything for this race. And our bedroom was bins for a couple weeks of just kept throwing supplies in, so I had my cold weather bin, I had my hot weather bin, I had medical supplies bin, I had extra food bin, possible gear, and I had everything listed out for my crew, so they'd know where to find it, because I knew they were going to be tired after 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, and so I think it was organization, and then just having backup after backup of contingency plans.
Already we're getting into the logistics side of things, which I know is its own. I mean, we could do a whole show, I'm sure, just about logistics for 250, but it does make me realize how much goes into preparation for 250 beyond just the training. Because not once in there did I really hear anything about like, oh, upping my mileage and doing this with mileage. Like, mileage was just there. There's all these other things that have to be taken care of to sort of prepare you for the things that are going to go wrong, or the inevitable, really. Like, you have to plan for everything.
And it starts to become normal, because you start thinking about it for all your training runs, all the stuff I have to be carrying, trying out my gear. And so when I did a couple training races, that were like a 50K, and I'm like, this 50K is so easy. I have a handheld, 3 gels, and the aid stations take care. That's it. I was like, wow, this is great. It changes your perspective. It switches your brain on what, ultra run, different races are like.
It's funny.
Yeah.
I remember you saying that specifically, that 50Ks are now, they're like training runs. I'm just going out with a handheld and a couple gels, got my
Yeah.
50K, and we're just going to go do it. And how that felt like when you start training for a marathon, your first marathon or something, when you're going through the process of 5K and a 10K, your first ones are very much like, oh my God, a 5K, it's so far. A 10K, how do I double that? But with a marathon, all of a sudden a 5 or a 10K is like, oh, cool. I'm just going to go do that on a Wednesday morning, you know? And
Yeah.
the 50K is kind of turns into that. We have tons of live questions for Deb.
Yes, we
I will let you
do.
take it away, do a couple of these, and then we'll start talking about into the actual training and logistics of the 250 itself.
Yeah, and feel free to keep asking questions. Whatever
coming.
we don't get through during the main show, we'll ask in the after show as well. So Debbie, you're just talking about learning from your 100-mile experiences and growing from that. And Andrea has a question. Andrea asked, will this be a similar process for the 250? Learn from your mistakes and try it again, or was this a one-time experience?
Good question, Andrea. I still want to go and do the Tahoe 200. This Cocodona race, I think, just went so well for me. I mean, I can't say it was perfect, but it was pretty close. I mean, I really think everything went super well. And if I went back, I'd be afraid that it could only go downhill from there. I mean, my crew just was awesome. I mean, they were like a pit stop crew. They had everything dialed in. And I mean, and it's hard to get a group of people that will commit, a week of their
Right.
time. They've got to take vacation time away from their families, and I was able to pull this stellar crew together. And most of them, I mean, I knew that they would be, totally committed to me, but they hadn't met each other before. So, you didn't know if they were going to gel because they had to spend a lot of time together
Right.
as well. Right. And then, I did have stomach issues, but overall, I mean, I was able to consume so many calories every day, and that was able to get me to the finish line. And I was looking at other people's problems, with feet issues and just being down. And I was happy like 95% of the race. I mean, I just felt like had so much joy being out there. I was having a great time. I kept looking forward to the next, stop we were going to go to.
Cool.
And yeah, so I mean, I just felt a lot of gratitude of being able to finally get to experience this. And I was having fun doing it. So yeah, I mean, I want to experience that again. I'm a little nervous, like this one would, I don't want to jinx this one because it's
Right.
great. It went great.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a cool experience. Like the fact that you were able to experience the joy and the happiness and the gratitude for the whole thing is, you couldn't have asked for a better, what I imagine, 5-6 days out there, right? More live questions.
Yeah, a question from Brian Fagundes. They asked, Deb, was there a standout, transcendent, or awe-striking experience during the 250-mile journey?
Well, Brian, I mean, I will just say like a weird experience. Typically, I've been doing some hallucinations in my 100-milers, and I was like telling my, my pacers, I haven't hallucinated at all. I'm not having anything, right? And so this was probably about we definitely were over 200. I think we were probably about, 215 in. And it was through the night. It was through Thursday night, real early in the morning. And both my pacer and I was like, what is that? And, you just see something off the trail. Of course, I'm like, my brain is trying to process. It's sleep deprived. It's probably energy deprived. I'm like, I think it's one of these antique cars that someone stashed in the middle of nowhere in the car. You know what I mean? I mean, my pacer's like, did you just say you haven't hallucinated? And I'm like, yeah. And then she's like, it's not a car. And I'm like, oh, it's a camera. There's cameras on us and they're filming us right now and they're following us. She's like, okay, now you're scaring me. And then finally, it's someone sleeping on the trail. And I'm yelling and they're like, leave me alone, like trying to sleep, and it's just some guy and he's got his bivvy over him. And, it's one of the runners getting a trail nap.
Oh my God. So you first thought it was a car, and then antique car, and then you thought it was a camera crew following you. But the poor person was just trying to get some sleep. We have that guest.
I'm not sure if that answers Brian's question, but that's what came to mind on Transcendent.
That does it. The great part is that you can go to this hallucination and ask how he experienced it at some point. Did you ever find out who it was?
No. I mean,
Maybe
he was angry.
He was not real.
He was angry.
He was angry.
Yes.
More live questions.
Yeah. So since we're talking about sleep now, Peach in the chat asks, can you talk about your sleep strategy? What was your plan and how well did you execute against your plan? How much sleep did you get and in what doses?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question, Peach, because you spend a lot of time trying to plan sleep. And that was a big question between other runners before we're doing training runs. Well, what's your sleep strategy? And runners that had done it last year, what's your, and I was able to, spend some time with Pam Reed for a few races before this. She did it last year. And she said, don't do what I did. You've got to sleep early, because when you get to the end, she's like, the course becomes so much more runnable when you get up into Flagstaff. But if you don't have, the sleep or a little bit of rest, you're not going to be able to move. And that's what happened to her, even though she finished like 9th over, female. So she did great. But so I went in, I'm like, okay, I do want to get some sleep in early. My initial goal was 60 miles. Every 60 miles, I do like a chunk and then try to sleep 2 to 3 hours.
Okay.
So I went through that first 60 miles, got to Whiskey Row. I had an RV following me along, which was awesome. If anybody does the race and is able to get access to an RV, do it. Because, it was so nice just to be able to not have to sleep in the cots. Maybe sometimes they were cold in the elements and have to, rely on drop bags. I got into a warm vehicle in the night or a cool vehicle in the daytime. So I set my alarm for 2 hours. We tried it. After 1 hour, wide awake, was ready to go.
Wow.
So the next 60 miles, did it again. Set my alarm for 2 hours, 1 hour, wide awake. And that was kind of every single time I took a nap, it was my 1 hour nap. I never woke up by an alarm.
Wow.
But after the second 60, so 120 miles in, because it was a large downhill section in that coming into Jerome and out of Jerome, I think that just beat up my legs. Plus, it's 120 miles. I did notice that I was starting to have signs of rhabdo. There was blood in my urine. And so I'm like, we're going to take this third day super easy, hydrate really well. And when we got into the 30 miles after that, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to rest. I think I need to rest a little bit more frequently. And so I did it in 30 mile chunks after that.
Okay. Oh. And you stuck with the 1 hour of sleep after every 30 miles sort of thing.
I mean, my body that was it. That's all it wanted. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing though, that you were even able to, getting an hour sleep probably felt like 6 hours in those moments, right? You come in from a long run in the hot and the heat, you take an hour and you're up and you're probably ready to go. Did it feel like
I think that my brain reset. And we had a routine right down. Like my crew again was awesome. They would have fresh clothes ready for me.
Yeah.
After the first day, I was getting some allergy reaction on my feet. So it was like clean the feet, get some cortisone cream on it to get the rash down, get some clean clothes on, eat a big meal.
Yeah.
And then go down to sleep. And we did that every single time. Wow. And it worked like clockwork.
I do want to give a shout out to your crew. Do you want to mention who your crew is? Crew is obviously a huge part of this.
If crew's in here, hi everybody. Love you guys. You were awesome. Marsha French was my crew captain. She's amazing. Darcy Swanson was the RV driver and got us all locations. Daniel Davis, GR crew member, was, he got so many calories into me that more than I was like, I don't think I can eat anymore. But he was just like, you're eating, it's 15 minutes. I don't care what, if you're drinking calories, eating calories, you're getting it in. So he probably got me through, because he was my third day person. He probably got me through, to that day 5 with all those calories.
Yeah.
Then Erica Rackley, who's also a GR crew member, amazing. We met through you guys, and we've been trading pacing duties back and forth the last several years. And so she was awesome. Great to catch up with, just lots of stories. She's the one that said, no, that is not a car. That is not. Yeah. Yeah. Not video. No one's following us. Yeah. And then Shannon McQuaid, she took me in. She was actually supposed to help pace a friend that was also doing the race. His race ended in Sedona. And so she was fresh. She's ready to pace. And it was great to have her. Yeah, she took me through the roughest patch. Yeah, it was great. It was an all-star team.
It sounds, crew for this event sounds like they have to be as present as the runner themselves, and they have to be a part of it. It's such a big commitment. It's such an awesome thing to have such a great crew. I'm stoked that you were able to have such a great stellar crew to follow you along, Deb. I do want to find out a bit more specific on training and logistics type stuff here, because I think this is probably some of the more common questions that people will ask when approaching a distance like this. Training mileage leading into a 250-mile event. Obviously, we know that you've done many ultras. You have lots of training under your belt. Was there a weekly target? Was there something that you and your coach talked about? And feel free to give your coach a shout out. We love her very much on this show. She's been a guest.
Yeah, Sally McRae's my coach. She was fantastic. Yeah, I mean, she recently told me that she was kind of using me as an experiment, because that 200-mile, 250 distance, I mean, it's unknown really what's, going to work or not work. And
right.
What she figured out for me, because I just followed whatever she said. I didn't question it. My mileage, a lot of weeks were only like in the 40 to 50 miles. However, my hours of training were pretty high, because there was biking, there was a lot of weight training. There was always other activities, yoga, that, a lot of double days during the week that I would be doing, just not always running. So I wasn't breaking my body down quite a bit, but I was getting my endurance up. Also training at different times of the day. And so
interesting. That's a fun one.
Yeah. Instead of your routine, where for me, it's always getting up early and getting it done. Well, you also need to do something at the end of the day, where you're tired, and you don't want to. Yeah.
You're essentially simulating those days where you, or those moments in the race where you would run for 30 miles, you'd sleep, you'd get rest, and then you'd have to be right back up and running again, right?
Right. Yeah. And then when it got closer, there was a lot of 50K distances that I either did with a training race, or just training on the course, or something else that got that distance, and it would be sandwiched between two long distances, longish being like 15 miles. And those 50Ks were usually vertical, had a lot of vert in there, because this race had so much vert prescribed in it. And so we did things like, there was a Crown King race that we talked about, the 50K, but there was also the first 72 miles we didn't talk about. The first 72 miles of the race, or 76 miles, got rerouted the last week because of fires. But the original course was brutal. I mean, 10,000 feet of climbing in 30 miles, just and no aid. It was insane and exposed and hot. And so they did a training run. The Aravaipa hosted a training run for that section. So that was amazing training. We followed up the next weekend with a Grand Canyon training, and it made the Grand Canyon feel easy. So if that gives you a perspective.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I felt like at that time, my Grand Canyon was probably 3 weeks out. That was probably my peak, or like my last long. And when I was like, because this Grand Canyon feels easy, I know my body is ready for what's coming. And then Sally did, she enjoyed doing things as far as, before those 50K runs, that long run that I'd have would be at night before. So it wasn't like I ran 15, in the morning. I ran 15 in the evening and then turned around and got up and did, you know, a big 50K distance.
I love knowing that it's less like mileage for you in your case with training and more volume or like hours of training versus like actual mileage numbers.
Versus like having to do like 100+ mile weeks
Yeah.
every week for however many weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, being able to reflect back, Deb, would you feel that I think I know the answer to this, but I'm curious if you feel it was a full success. Were there any moments during this 250 miles, 112 hours that you felt like, oh, I wish I had done more of this, or I wonder if I would tweak this next time? Like, did you have any of those reflective moments?
The only thing I would have tweaked is like on a few more sections of the course.
Hmm.
When we're not sure coming into Sedona, if we were on the right course or not. And so we questioned it, kind of going back and forth. And it's, we've got our GPS maps. It shows that we're on the course. Didn't feel right. But if I had practiced it, I would have been confident.
Sure.
And I wouldn't have wasted that time. That was probably the only thing. So not really the amount of training, but just getting a little bit more course knowledge on sections that was available to me. I could have, this is my backyard. So I could have gone up there and done it, at any time. So that was the only thing I probably would have changed. I have to say, since I've worked with Sally and it's been 4 years now, I haven't had one injury. So, that says a lot, especially as a middle 50s, athlete. So
Early 50s.
Early 50s.
Oh, okay.
50s.
Young
Let's
50s.
not rush it, Deb.
Yeah, let's not rush it, Deb. We did chat with Deb before the show and just clarified that, Deb is 54 years young and still crushing longer and longer distances. I feel like, Deb, you're just getting started. It's really, really amazing to see what you've been able to accomplish, but also this 250 miles. For someone who's run 100 miles once and knows what that felt like after, it's crazy to think of more than doubling that distance. And I know we've had guests on the show who've run either Cocodona or other 200-mile endurance events. And there's just something that you learn out there that I think you only get to experience if you attempt it. And that's that you are obviously more capable than you think you are of these things. Mm-hmm. Are there big lessons that you were able to pull from this experience that you can let trickle down to other areas of your life or other endurance events? 100 miles probably doesn't even seem like anything now, but.
Well, no, 100 miles is a big deal. Any ultra distance is a big deal. And I think as I look back I wish I would have appreciated what I did in the past more. And so I'm trying to really appreciate what I just did, versus downplay like, well, yeah, a bunch of, I was middle of the pack or whatever, but, I did cover 250 miles and I should be, when I did my first 100K, I should have like appreciated it more. And that's what I want to take is just enjoy, the success that I had. And because I'm kind of the person of what's next, looking forward. I'm anxious, of I need a goal on my calendar. But I do want to step back I think that we can set our mind to and accomplish anything we really want to. We need a plan. We need to work at it. And if you fail the first time, then you come back and you try it again and you learn from that and you try it again. And so,
if your feet fall off and you get GI distress for hours on end, just
come back,
dust it off and come back.
It's funny. Just as you were saying that, Deb, I feel very much caught up in the what's next, what's next, just for myself. Often we have guests on the show and I purposefully try to avoid the question of what's next. And I always mention that. I'm like, I don't want to ask you what's next.
But almost every time somebody in the chat room is asking, well,
what's next? What's next? And we get excited because we want to see what these amazing humans are up to next because we want to follow the adventure. But man, is there something to be said about enjoying the victory that you just achieved? And that doesn't just go for Deb, because Deb, I hope that you can revel in this masterful execution of a 250-mile endurance event. I hope you're able to enjoy it and soak it in for as long as you possibly want, because it is such an amazing accomplishment. But just you saying that helped me just sort of go just kind of reflect on my races and even just a weekend run, like being able to go, that was really awesome. Let's not forget that running 20 miles on the weekend is kind of a big deal to a lot of people, you know? So
Yeah.
really, really awesome to chat with you, Deb, about this. I do want to, before we wrap up the main show here, I do kind of want to dig into the camaraderie of the event itself, because having the fortune of being able to watch some of this unfold live, a huge shout out to the entire Aravaipa crew for creating an amazing live experience of a 250-mile event, multiple days of live streaming.
And even inviting
we got to be on there.
On.
we unfortunately missed Deb coming through Sedona by like a couple hours, maybe. What was it like out there on this course? There's a few hundred of you running this 250 miles. Were you teaming up with other people? Was there this sort of shared experience with one another that you're all out there and kind of enduring this together? Like, what was it like runner to runner?
I mean, the first day definitely were a lot tighter. So there was a lot of leapfrogging, a lot of talking a little bit more because we're fresh. Even through the second night, I was by myself through the second night. I was kind of going back and forth with people. You're a little more miserable then. So but you're still encouraging, as you know, like, hang in there.
Right.
these rocks will be done soon. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of stuff. And then it gets pretty quiet after the second day. You see people at aid stations at that time. They're pretty much just kind of quiet, sitting, closing their eyes for a second, you know. But you kind of like just look at each other in the eye, and you kind of know, you know, what the other person feels like I got you kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, it was fun to see several people that I'd see them at aid stations, and like, you know, one gal, Michelle, I would see her like at every aid station. And, you know, by the time I got to the end, you know, I knew she was right behind me, you know, within 30 minutes to an hour. And I knew it was after 2 a.m, and my crew's been up there for late. And I was just like, I'm sorry, I got to wait until she finishes. I mean, you know, you know, after going 5.5, 6 days back and forth, I've just got to see her finish. Yeah.
That's so special.
It really is. I mean, I am just so blown away, Deb. I am incredibly impressed and just inspired, and I really can't wait to see what's next. Of course, I want to continue to celebrate this as a huge win for you. And now that you are a few weeks, I guess, removed from it, how is the body truly feeling? Are you back to running? Are you training again? Or
definitely. I started moving my body last week. Incorporating some swimming, which I haven't done in about 3 years. So I dusted off my gym membership and I got into the pool. And so that's good. So I've gotten some swims in. I ran for really the third time today. It felt better today than it did yesterday. Yesterday, I felt like I was really going fast, and I looked at my watch and it's like, you're not even moving.
You're still on the couch, Deb.
Yeah, you haven't. Yeah. So, so I kind of just feel a little sluggish, like things aren't, but overall pretty good. I think I'm caught up with sleep finally. Sleep was a big thing to catch up with. It took several days before I could actually sleep through the night. My feet pain, I didn't have a real huge blister issues, but my nerves, pain, the nerve pain in my feet, they were just overactive. And so it'd keep me up. I'd have to put ice packs on them and keep them elevated, for a couple days until that started to relieve itself, which is weird. I mean, it's a new distance. So I guess, it's a 250.
Your body's figuring it out. Yeah. It's like, hey, we're numb now, but we'll work it back out.
Yeah.
We have tons of live questions that we did not get to here in the main show. We are going to ask those in our after show. So we encourage you to please join the GR crew if you would like to join us for the after show. Patreon.com/thegingerrunner. All tiers get access to it. I did want to find out before we get to the Quickie question quiz, since this is Deb's first time on the show, maybe a piece of gear, because obviously I love gear. We talk about gear on this channel a ton. A piece of gear that was an absolute necessity, something that you were like, oh man, I'm so glad I incorporated this. And maybe a piece of gear that you're like, why the hell did I even pack this? What a waste. So what are those two items before we wrap up?
Well, I mean, I was inseparable with my poles once I picked those up. I even took them. We had a friend's house in Flagstaff that we stayed at that had stairs. Like, they couldn't pry those poles out of my hands. I took them to the bed. I took them to the bath. Like, after you use them for 5.5 days, they're just an
Wow.
extension of your body.
Wow.
Yeah. I couldn't take a step without my poles. Um, and I did one of those rookie mistakes again, which is, they gave away these gaiters at the expo, right? And you're
Oh,
like, "Oh, try these new gaiters. They look great." And I'm like, "Okay, they look pretty durable. Maybe, they guarantee 1,000 miles, right? For
yeah.
sure. Oh, all right." So I tried these. I'm like, I'll just put them on for the race. Why not? And after 24 hours, I had welts around my
Oh
ankles
no.
Oh
because they
no.
were so tight around the ankle.
Oh
And so
no.
I'm like, I had other gaiters. I'm like, get these off. Like, these are not.
Something new on
Yeah,
race day. It
I know. I
happens to
mean,
the
wouldn't
best
you
of us.
think I would know? Yeah, I did it. I
But
got
also
sucked
something
in.
so so simple, right? Just like, oh, it's a gator. Like it's just gonna keep sand out of my
Yeah,
shoe.
it's not like trying new nutrition that you pick up at an
Exactly.
expo or new
Or a
shoes. It
new
seems
pair of
like something
shoes.
like minor.
Yeah, a gator, it's like
Yeah.
innocuous. It's just I'm not gonna feel it. It's gonna be
How bad
totally
could it
normal.
be?
How bad could it be? 24 hours later. My feet.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you'll just have to run it again. With new gators this time.
That's right. Yeah.
I am so excited to chat about this, Deb. Thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight. Because it is your first time on Ginger Runner Live, I believe we've talked with Deb
Agreed.
before on some of our Discord live shows and stuff like
Yes.
that. But this is her first Ginger Runner Live officially. Deb, we have a little segment on our show that we'd like to call the Quickie Question Quiz. I know
People
you
in
were.
the chat are already asking for the QQQ.
I've got it. I'm at the ready. Deb knows what it is. But Deb, basically, rapid fire series of questions, very short list of questions. But when you are ready to answer them as fast as possible, give me the thumbs up and we'll just dive on in. Here we go. Very first race.
Well, it had to be for that marathon training program I did. Was the 5K, which yeah, it was just a local 5K, then the local 10K, then the local half marathon.
Favorite place to run currently?
Ah, I'm gonna say Tahoe. The Rim Trail. Yeah, I just love Tahoe. Anytime I can get up there.
Road or trails?
Trails all day.
Bucket list race.
Tahoe 200.
It'll happen. I know it'll happen.
Yes. Yeah. I'm gonna volunteer this year, so I should be able to get in next year.
Excellent. Favorite running movie?
Gonna say it's a tie because Where Dreams Go to Die. Always great show, but a decade on, I mean, Brian Morrison, so good.
We
Yeah.
got to see him
Great
this
story.
last weekend
We
or at
did
Tiger
get to
Claw.
see
It was
him
so good
last
to see his face.
weekend.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful human being. Thank you for making one of my movies your favorite. I love that. And it is the correct answer. I'm actually excited about this. Guilty pleasure TV show.
You know, although my husband can't stand it, Outlander right now, or is it? Yeah, I'm watching.
Oh, I don't know that
Where
show.
she travels back 200 years. She was married, then all of a sudden she has to marry this other guy. He's a hunk. Yeah,
I don't know this show.
I don't know the show, but now, I mean,
Hunk.
he's a
That was
hunk.
it. He's
So-
a hunk.
I
I'm
mean,
in.
yeah, I've read the books. I'm waiting for the last book to come out. Yeah, I mean,
All right.
yeah, it's I mean, if you go back old school, like growing up, I will always say Buffy the Vampire Slayer, hands
Excellent
down,
choice.
is a favorite. Yeah.
Excellent choice.
I was waiting for it to be Murder, She Wrote, and then a decade on, like the whole
The
thing would
whole
just like
full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Favorite pre-race meal?
Right now, I'm doing a quesadilla with avocado.
Favorite post-race meal?
Lately I crave a lot of greens and vegetables. So I actually love like having some kind of salad or a vegetable base with beer.
Can we have that for dinner tonight? I'm into that. And finally, what are your current running kicks, or what shoes did you wear for the Cocodona 250?
Most of it, I wore the Speed Goat 4s.
Okay.
And then I switched. Oh, well, I kind of went back and forth and I switched over to the Evo Speed Goats. There was a couple water crossings. And so when I was able to switch, and then I would get the other shoes to dry out. And then another water crossing, I'd switch back and let those shoes dry out. So over 5.5 days, you can switch shoes quite a bit.
Yeah. Did you just switch back and forth between 2 pairs pretty much?
Yeah, just those 2.
That's still, that's really impressive that you didn't have to have like 50 pairs of shoes, to get you every 20 miles or something. Well, congratulations, Deb. You passed the test.
Yay!
You did it. Our guest tonight has been Deb Hamberlin, the one and the only. She just crushed the Cocodona 250-mile endurance event a couple of weekends ago in Arizona, I believe from Black Canyon City all the way up to Flagstaff, Arizona. Long ways to go by foot.
Well, they did switch it because it was Black Canyon.
It was Black Canyon City, and then the reroute started in...
It started outside of Prescott, and so
Prescott.
they had to do a big loop. So they did a great big 60-mile loop and then hook back up on the original course.
What was the name of the canyon? Like Skull Canyon or Ghost Canyon?
Yeah, Skull Valley.
Skull Valley. It's a cool name for a valley. Yeah. Regardless, congratulations, Deb. I do want to give you an opportunity to let people know where they can find and follow you online so they can follow your future adventures and everything like that. Where can they find you?
Instagram at Deb Runs Far. Same as Twitter, Deb Runs Far. Then at Deb Hamberlin on Facebook. And I think my Strava is public too. So if you want to do Deb Hamberlin there.
Excellent. Everyone, you know what to do. Go thank Deb for being on tonight's episode. What a wonderful chance to get to catch up and get to hear what it was like.
250 miles.
Yeah, no kidding. 250 miles is I don't even drive that far. I am so happy that she was able to join us tonight. We are going to move into our after show with Deb. We're going to ask those remaining questions that didn't get asked during the main show. So again, head on over to patreon.com/thegingerrunner. All tiers get access to those perks. So we'd love to have you, and our daily live streams as well. Another shout out to Onyx Backcountry. Thank you so much for sponsoring the next few episodes. We're very, very appreciative of it. And finally, we have a segment on the show that we like to call our GR Crew Member of the Week, where we get to recognize members of the community who go above and beyond, just like Deb. Kim, who is this week's GR Crew Member?
This week's GR Crew Member of the Week is Andrea B. And over on Discord, Andrea mentioned that they ran their very first 50-miler this past weekend at the Bishop High Sierra Ultra.
Hell yeah.
So congratulations. It sounded like it was quite the day.
It looks like a beautiful course just at the foothills of the Sierra and up into the Sierra elevation and everything. Congratulations, Andrea. Well done on the first 50-miler. That wraps up episode 399. Next week, I guess, is episode 400. Should we do something? Why not? Are you going to wear a tux?
I think for episode 300, we might have had like champagne, cake.
Ooh. I mean, I'm in. I'm excited.
Ball gowns.
I'll do that.
That was all Gus.
Yeah, and then what did we wear? So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into tonight's episode. We'll see you next week. If you are a GR Crew member, we'll see you in the after show, and we'll see you tomorrow for Daily Brew. But thank you so much, everyone. Get out there, train hard, race harder, and party the hardest. I know I am. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Ginger Runner.